What's up, guys? You're watching Tug TV.
And today we're going to talk about Vader live in Bangalore.
Excuse my shitty voice because I'm down with the flu. So before we get into anything, we want to thank you all. We've just hit the 50 subscriber mark. It is a small number, but we're getting there, and it's your support. A lot of content and music is in the making. We're working on new music, original content, and a lot more, which you will see in the next couple of weeks.
And a lot more funny sketches as well. So the gig took place in Vapor, again in Indranagar. The show was actually supposed to start off by 7:30, but then due to a few reasons it started by 8:30. But this altogether did not bring down the whole atmosphere of the show. But this did give a chance for all the metalheads to actually go and try out their own brewed beers rather.
Yeah.
And trust me, there are a few awesome ones out there.
I think another good thing about Vapor, specifically for this show, unlike a lot of other places where we've been, Vapor has 2 floors.
Exactly.
Where you can get on top and then you have a vantage point view of the gig. So that worked well. In fact, most of the gig we covered is from that point because, we got ourselves a good table. And essentially this worked well because you can have your beer or your food, you can sit down, get a good view of the bands that we're playing, and if you wanted to go ahead and have some fun, you could always go downstairs, get into the mosh pit and come back up. So it worked well because those who wanted to be in the mosh pit got to be there.
Exactly.
And those who wanted to just chill out and have a aerial
Just
shot,
enjoy the whole show for what the show was. They had it in there.
So I think the choice of Vapor as a venue, good idea.
Yep. With that being said, there were a few technical issues which actually plagued the whole show as such.
So we had a total of 5 bands play before Vader, and they were in reverse order. We had Nauseate, Anorectal Ulceration, Shock Therapy, Grossty, and I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing it right, whether it's xrepeatx or xrepeatx, but that was the first band that had actually taken stage.
For links to all these bands, we have it down below in the description. Coming to the first band, xrepeatx, these guys had a lot of technical issues to begin with. There was a time crunch that they had to face.
And they also had trouble with the amplifier.
Exactly. The amplifier was the main thing that these guys actually faced. They had to switch out just when they started off. I think they were hardly like 10 or 20 seconds into the song. I did feel the guitar tone kind of lacked a bit of that mid-range and, the bottom end of it.
There was a little bit of lack, which could have been made up with bass guitar, which was missing. But then again, this is grindcore. It isn't something that might be necessary to the genre.
Exactly. And what happens in most of your grindcore bands is the factor that of an overridden bass.
Yeah.
So what happens is you are losing out on a lot of frequencies. So this might have been the main reason for it, or it just might be because of the running around from amps to amp. That also might be the thing. We're not right sure.
Next band on stage was Grossty. Some unique antics from the vocalist on his front, but whatever works.
Yeah, to each their own, I guess.
Yeah. The drummer, I would say, in this band was really good. He
Exactly.
had good groove patterns, and it was refreshing to hear that grind and groove.
One of the things which I'd like to point out is the fact that this is the same drummer who was actually there in xrepeatx.
That's right. So one thing we did observe throughout the show is that a lot of the bands were essentially rehashed versions of themselves because you had a drummer from this band be a bassy in that group, a guitarist here hold bass, a vocalist.
Being the
so there was a lot of rehashing going on. Not that it's a problem, but it's good to see people support one another. So
exactly,
that's fine with us. Next up, Shock Therapy. This band, of course, joined us from Hyderabad.
Exactly.
And they're a seasoned band. They've been in the in the scene for about 5 odd years.
Yes.
So they definitely were the more seasoned among most of the bands that played, and this was evident in their sound and the way they carried themselves off as a band. The vocalist had good interaction with the crowd. The drummer again was really good. The guitarist had his tones well set for the kind of stuff that they were playing.
Exactly. And this is one place when even though they did not have a bass player in the band,
that's right,
it did give you a much more rounded tone when compared to the other two which played before them.
Not only that, they did have some good groove again, some
Exactly.
good tunes, some really good riffs which were catchy and heavy. Although this being grindcore, they really caught on and got the crowd going. Anorectal Ulceration, who has previously played in Deathfest, played again this time.
So there's not much of a new addition when compared to what we had seen them in Deathfest, but then one thing which I would like to point out was that the overall sound was better.
Yeah.
It had a much more essentially more defined sound, for lack of better words.
More
Yeah.
fuller also, and they sounded much better. I have to appreciate the vocalist of this band because he's one of the few who doesn't cup the microphone.
Yeah, exactly. And in this particular show, he was the first one among all of them to actually not do that.
For those of you who are
Yeah.
doing vocals, you'll be surprised how good you sound when you don't actually cup the microphone.
Yeah.
Final band, the before Vader, was Nauseate.
Yep.
Again, a rehashed version of some of the bands you'd seen before. We had the vocalist of Anorectal Ulceration did on bass, I think.
Bass and
Yeah.
the drummer remained the same.
That's right. And so, final band to take stage.
Vader.
Vader, of course, are a Polish death metal band that have been playing for nearly 35 years. They have previously played in Bangalore for the Bangalore Open.
And this is one of the few bands which, even though they have been around for more than 3 decades, have been proving from time to time that they do hold the mantle of,
Absolutely.
one of the pioneers of death metal.
Yeah, they sound just as good as how good they sounded when they started off. They still have the edge. Even in this show, despite the auditorium being so small, their sound was on point. Every time they get on stage, they have this massive presence and
Exactly.
massive wall of sound that was present throughout.
That's one thing. Like the owning of the stage part was something that you could see from the start. Like the
Absolutely.
initial note till the very end, they had control over it. Like it. Coming to Vader's complete show, what was happening was, since it's a very small stage out there, a lot of the stage monitors were actually kept on tables after the stage.
That's right.
So what was happening was there was a constant knocking down of the monitors, disconnecting the cables, wantedly or unwantedly, whatever the reason might be.
Yeah, not only that, there was also a little bit of issues where members of the crowd would get up on stage just because the stage was that close. And although the organizers would try to get them off,
Exactly.
they were being resilient. It is the only thing I can say is it's only Vader's maturity that they handled the situation.
Exactly,
so
they were
well.
very professional about it.
They
This
were
is one thing,
professional
like,
about it. They
like you
went
can
on
see
the
it
best.
on their faces that they didn't like it so much.
That's true.
But then essentially you don't just stop a show just because something like that happened.
Whoever the guys are who got on stage, you know who you are. You're a dickhead for doing that.
And another problem that Vader actually faced from the front row audience was actually the fact that there were a lot of times when the audience used to keep pushing Peter's pedals away.
And his monitors, you're
Exactly.
messing with his sound. And can only imagine how difficult it was for him to manage.
Exactly. And guys, when we mess around with their equipment like that, we are the ones who end up with a bad show.
Either way, it's a good show, quite brutal. There were a lot of mosh pits that were going on. A lot of
Exactly.
people having fun. There was a bit of a rowdy mosh pit also, but then
Yeah, it can account to a lot of different things as well.
there was essentially this guy and this guy. A lot of them in the crowd. Calm down, brothers. It's not a boxing ring. It's mosh pit. Learn to have fun.
Considering the set list, what Vader played that night, you can see that a few of the crowd favorites were missed out.
Yeah. Probably because of a time crunch.
Exactly. Personally, for me, I would have loved to see them play God is Dead, but
Having said that, they totally made up with the encore.
exactly that's when they re-emerged on stage and played Rain and Blood out of nowhere.
All in all, brilliant show by Vader. They have performed multiple times, proven themselves, and this was just as heavy, just as insane, and just as good as any of the other times. Great performance by the supporting acts as well.
Exactly.
Kudos to that. So all in all, a great show.
A big shout out to the technical team which was actually involved in conducting this gig.
That's right.
Because as we talked about before, during xrepeatx, there was an amp which kind of got busted.
That's
And
true.
these guys did manage to kind of get it running before Vader came in.
Yeah, not only that, the response time to the issues were top notch. They knew
Exactly.
what it was and they knew how they could fix it and how soon they could fix it. And it's not easy, being a technician and ensuring that everything is up and running
Exactly.
before your main show.
And these small nuances are the ones which actually add to the experience. Like,
That's true.
just imagine how the show would have sounded if there was just one amp that both the Vader guitarists were going through.
Yeah. So this show also was organized by the Bangalore Open Air banner.
Yep.
And totally good job over there. They've left no stone unturned in terms of having proper organization. Everything went off quite smoothly. So what did you think about it? Were you there at the Vader gig? What did you think about the gig? What did you think about the supporting acts? Let us know in the comments below. And what are your thoughts? And if you like what you see, hit that subscribe button and keep supporting us. We have a lot more coming your way.
And as always, stay metal.